Hey everybody, what's going on? Dave here from Tales from the Soundcheck podcast. We are back for another chat with the artist. Today we have the drummer, the vocalist slash guitarist of the three-piece rock metal group A Well-Oiled Machine. My buddy and old bandmate Brett, as well as Mario. What's up, guys? Brett, Mario.
What's going on, David?
What's what's the good word in CT?
Fabulous Connecticut over here. It's a little cooler today, but we're trying to get through this allergy season as well as you are, from the sounds of it.
Yeah, definitely. You guys just had a show over the weekend.
We did.
Yeah. How was that? Did you guys get to? Did they actually sell pizza at that place, or was it?
Yeah, they did. They did. It was. I got a grinder. It was like I got a half, and it was like an entire half of an Italian roll. Like it was large. It was very large. It's delicious. Oh, Mama's in Middletown. It's fantastic. And not a bad little stage and stuff like that. It was actually a pretty cool spot.
That's always cool. It's a free show too, right?
Free show, yeah.
Nice.
We had a ton of people out. We played with this band 77 Apes, which is just a guy, but he had a backing band, a couple friends of his or what have you, and they killed it, rocked out. We were a little heavier. When I say a little, I kind of mean a lot. But it was cool. Everyone dug it, and free show, so no one had to pay anything. And it's a fresh venue. I think they've only been open like a month or two.
Month and a half,
yeah.
It's a cool concept. When you say grinder, half of this country is like, what the hell is he talking about?
Oh yeah, that's right. We're Connecticut.
Hoagie.
You're out LA way, right? So what do you guys call it? Subs or no?
Yeah, I think they just call it probably
Sandwich?
a sub. If I call it a hoagie or a grinder or something like that, people are like, what? It's like when you go to a liquor store or you're at a party and you're like, hey, I gotta go do a packy run, and people are like, what, you going to UPS? And you're like, no, I'm going to the liquor store, package store. And they're like, I've never heard of that. And then the other example is you go into one of those stores and you're like, hey, can I get 2 nips of this? And they're like, what?
Wait, people don't call nips. What do they call?
That is a New England thing, man. Straight up New England thing. Here they call them small bottles, airplane bottles, whatever. Little bottles.
Airplane bottle.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
West
It's strange. You want to really fuck somebody's brain up. Ask for a nip on the West Coast.
Next time I'm out there, I absolutely will. I'll be like, yo, we gotta go pick up some nips from the packy.
Yeah, you're just trolling people with different lingo.
It's all I mean.
Yeah.
It's all I mean. That's it.
So I met Brett a long time ago. Brett, honestly, I don't even remember where we met or the day we met. I just know we met.
I remember the day we met, Dave. It was at a Catholic temple.
Yes.
Yeah. A long time ago. New Britain High School, represent, hard hitting. And I remember you were still pretty big with Kadema playing bass.
Oh, yeah.
And
yeah.
I think you came down to fill in. Actually, I think you were filling in for another band. You're like, hey, I play for this band, Kadema. And I think I was playing with like a cover band doing like Nirvana, Smells Like Teen Spirit or something. You're like, hey, man, it sounds like you play metal drums, you're interested in starting a band. And I remember you were just venturing into different endeavors. And you're like, hey, we should link up with a guy named Steve Bertolini. And, rest is history. But I remember we got together and got the old early Medish Remedy days started. And I think your hair was pretty long, but at that time, I think my hair might have been longer.
Yeah.
Down to my shoulders. Yeah. And we had just started kicking it off, and Steve was writing some pretty sweet riffs. And I remember putting the ad in the Britain Herald, like, this is, I think MySpace was just on the rise, and we were
the newspaper.
That is old school.
Yeah, so
put it in the paper.
Yeah, we put it in the paper, and this guy, his legal name was, born name was Sean Sutton. ended up rocking with this guy. Came down, and we thought he was a serial killer, gonna kill us all, and ended up being the nicest guy ever, and very talented vocalist. And then
I'm trying to get Steve and Sean on here. Steve's a little harder. Steve doesn't like to talk about himself too much, which is fine. Sean is definitely down. I've talked to him a little, maybe a couple months ago, and he was definitely down to talk. So if I get him on, maybe we can get everybody on it at once. That would be a lot of fun. But yeah, Mediterranean. I do remember that now. I remember actually walking up to you and being like, I gotta get this drummer. And then yeah, the rest is history. I remember picking up Sean. I think it was Steve and I, it might have been the three of us, and we drove out to Southington to go get him. And I remember us being like, yeah, we're gonna get our kidneys harvested or something
yeah,
like that. Like this. And then he comes out of his house and he's just decked out like full black trip pants, black lipstick, black eyeliner, fishnets, like spikes, and we were just like, all right, this guy's metal.
So I've heard about this guy, right? I met him one time at like the most random place. I can't remember exactly where it was, but I remembered I think he asked me about metal or cafe tempo or something like that, and we got to the conclusion that he was the dude from that I've been hearing about from Menace Remedy, from Brett, for years. And the only thing that I really know about this guy, other than his vocals were like insane, is like trip pants, like the whole nine with the like 2000s like goth garb,
Yep. Yep. He stayed true to it. It's 2023. He's still similar guy, and he's one thing I always remember about Sean. Sean and I used to argue all the time about subgenres in music.
Oh my god, yeah.
And they weren't bad arguments, but they would go on for hours, dude. Like,
Dude knows shit.
Well, that's
and
fun.
I don't. Yeah, it was good times. We didn't play enough shows with that band. I wish we played a lot more shows.
Right.
But it was good times. I actually listened to the tracks the other day, and I'm like, man, how cool would it be? Yeah, how cool would it be to redo these with modern technology, not something that was 15 plus years ago.
Like reproduce, like
yeah,
the
just
same
redo them, start over. But I don't even know. We'd have to and some of those songs, Steve made them very complex, so they would be a little difficult. But we'd probably be able to get it done. I'd do it in different tunings, and obviously we have better amps now and better tech. So it's
we're adults with jobs.
Yeah, it would be a lot.
We have the technology.
You know what the crazy thing was I was still an adult with a job when that happened, and I was like 15 plus years ago. So.
At Lowe's, I remember. Yeah.
God. Yeah. So I gotta ask. I got one for you, Brett. That is pretty. I don't know if I know the story of it. I know your dad's a drummer.
Yep.
For the band John Street, and he has been for quite many years. Was that your sole inspiration to get behind the kit? Did your dad just throw you on a throne when you were little? Because I know I've seen pictures of you when you were little. You just, you were behind a drum kit the whole time.
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. Say that I got pictures with the big old earmuffs, and he used to just bring me to band practice, and his practice in Newington, Connecticut. And they would be rocking out, and I was just like a little sponge with earmuffs on and throwing. He'd put me on his second floor tom, and I would just sit there and just absorb it all. Watching the drums, watching the guitarists and the vocalists, and just like letting it soak into my brain. And they tell you like hey, exposing kids to music early on is a really important thing. It's so true, and taking it further. Getting into metal music, my dad had the CD club that he would always get these, different genres of music and different CDs coming out at the time when CDs were still really popular in the 90s, and, switching from glam metal to grunge and then going into metal and bands like Slipknot, Cold Chamber. And Slipknot, I think, really did it for me with the, getting into double bass drumming and, Joey Jordison's really the reason why I picked up, got a double bass pedal and, Wait and Bleed. Once I heard that song for the first time, I remember I was like in my cousin's Bronco and I'm like, holy shit, with this kickers playing the double bass. And I'm like, oh my God, I gotta like learn more about this kind of drumming. And I'd say Joey and my father, those are like the really biggest influences on me and, to make me the drummer I am today, for sure.
Yeah, you met Joey Jordison too, which is pretty rad. It's rest in peace. He
Absolutely.
was a real goat in the game. So
as they say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
No pun intended for Slipknot, right?
Oh, yeah, there you go. Nice.
Iowa, yeah.
Yeah. Mario, I gotta ask, like, with guitar, was that your first instrument? Is that something that you started on? Did you we've talked to a lot of musicians on here already, and all of them started on drums. So I don't know if you'd be any different. It'd be really funny to keep that trend going. I don't know.
So no drums for me. That's one of the things that I like. I could carry a tune, but I don't claim to be a drummer. Out of the many instruments that I've picked up over the years, that's one of the only instruments where I'm like, nope, I could screw around, but leave that to somebody that actually knows what they're doing. I started on guitar. I started on harmonica. My parents had a couple harmonicas. My grandmother played harmonica, and a bunch of my family's like musical, not my parents necessarily, but I have a lot of family members that play like fiddle and accordion and just kind of like hillbilly-ish type of like rural stuff, spoons. And
I was just gonna say spoons.
Yeah. So I kind of started with like stuff like that. My sister played piano because growing up, my parents always had a piano. So she played piano and I was still really, really young. My father had a couple guitars, and I'm really grateful because they're really good guitars. I still use them to this day and I'll never get rid of them. They're incredible. So I think I forget what it was. I think one of my sister's friends was playing like Iron Man on one of the guitars or something. And I was like, that's cool as hell. Like I gotta know how to do that. So he taught me that. And my parents, being supportive of the musical arts, they got me guitar lessons. The same place Brett at the time was taking guitar lessons out in Plainville. And I remember seeing Brett, and I didn't realize until like years later. I was like, oh my God, you're that guy that was after me in Plainville, like trying to learn metal shit. Like I remember like going in and I asked the teacher to teach me Alaska by Between the Buried and Me. And he was like, oh, the guy after you is like into that stuff. And it all just like, it clicked that Brett was the guy, which I think is hilarious with how incredible of a drummer he is. He was out there taking guitar lessons, and not to toot your horn, Brett, but you're pretty solid on guitar.
He is. He's very good at guitar as well.
Incredible drummer. I mean, I wouldn't put him up against anybody. That'd just be a slaughter. But
I'm blushing, please.
I could see you through the audio, Brett.
Yeah, turning real red.
Yeah, no drummer over here. I would say I started with guitar, and it kind of was a wrap from there.
Very cool. What was one of the guitars that was passed down to you?
So, a cheap. I think the story goes it came from Sears back in like the late 50s. It's a Suzuki, the like motorcycle company.
Mm-hmm.
It's a Suzuki. It's super old, but it's one hell of a gem. I mean, people play it and they're like, wow, I've never played a guitar with this action that's so comfortable and it just sounds great. So I got that one, and I remember being like 7 years old or whatever, and it was too big for me because it was an acoustic and I was a little squirt. I still am. And so my father had a Memphis Les Paul like copy or whatever. and I started playing that just because it was smaller. It was easy for me to like wrap my arms around. Um, that guitar shit the bed real fast. Snot nosed kid, leaning up against a wall, and next thing you know, neck's cracked and yada yada. But he left me some really great acoustics. I have a Guild Jumbo acoustic, and that is like my pride and joy. Like that guitar will like go to my kids and their kids and their kids' kids. Um, Definitely a lot of sentimental value, but as an instrument itself, it's really incredible, and I'm so grateful that like I can't imagine I'd be where I am if I didn't have decent equipment growing up. It's really hard to I always say a better guitar is going to make a guitarist a better guitar player. Maybe not technically, maybe not skill wise, but it's going to make them want to play more
Sonically.
Sonically. Yeah, it's going to sound better. It's going to be more comfortable. I play somebody's guitar and the action's an inch off the fretboard, and I'm like, dude, you don't want to play this. Like, you're never gonna like come home from work and say, hey, I want to play guitar, because it's too hard. So I got really lucky in that aspect.
These Suzuki guitars are going for a lot of money.
Oh, are you looking it up?
Yeah,
I
because I was
actually never even
curious.
really looked it up, to be honest.
I was curious because I wanted to know the succession, if Suzuki and Yamaha, if they used like parts of Japanese-made Ibanez. So I was trying to see if that was something in the line of the history of these guitars, but it's looking like, I mean,
So it's funny. It's funny you
Heartman.
say Yamaha, because my first electric that I ended up buying after the Memphis Les Paul style copy, like shit the bed or whatever. Do you remember Burritt Music Shop in New Britain, downtown New Britain?
Yes.
I went there. My father, one of his buddies worked there, and he said, "Hey, look, I'm looking for a guitar for my, like I think I was like 8 at the time. I'm looking for a good guitar, pretty cheap. I don't know if he's really going to stick with it, but I want something good." So he got me or I guess we picked out a Yamaha Pacifica. And on all the forums now and stuff, like those are like really sought after as far as like price point guitars. And man, I rocked the hell out of that thing for years. Brett and I were in a band, freaking 10 years ago. I was rocking that guitar forever.
It's pretty
style.
pretty impressive. Yeah, it looks like Suzuki guitars started in the early 50s and just stopped making production in 1987. Did a lot of these like the Suzuki Heartman Stratocaster Vintage, $800 on Reverb. Uh Suzuki, what's this one
I think
called?
that's my guitar right there.
Let's see. Yeah, they look. A lot of them are. Oh, here you go. Sears Roebuck Suzuki, 1970. Yeah, there's a lot of these things are. They're going from like $2,000 to $800. Some of these Suzuki electrics.
Yeah, the guild that he left me, it stayed in the case like my whole life. I think once a year he would take it out and just play like a 1-4-5 little blues like riff, and then put it back in the case, and under the bed it went, and it's in pristine condition. And that thing is like, I only take that out for like a nice occasion.
It's a guild, right?
A guild, yeah. It's a F50 RNT. It's one under the top of the line guild jumbos, and that thing, I mean, it's just a monstrous sound. Huge.
You said F50?
F50, yep.
Oh, Jesus Christmas, dude. These things are going 2,500 used on Reverb, man. Those things.
Yeah, mine's
expensive guitar.
pristine. It is pristine. It stays in the case, humidifier, the whole nine.
Good. Yeah, that's really rad. There's a couple guitars that I've owned, couple basses that I've owned that I wish I never got rid of, and there were a couple basses that I could have gotten, and I wish I got them when I should have, because I was trying to. I'll shoot myself in the foot now, but I was looking for a Paul Gray signature before he passed, and that was a bass that I had wanted. And I had an opportunity to trade one of my bases plus a couple $100 for one. And now looking back at it, holding out on the base that I didn't want to trade was the stupidest thing, because I don't have that bass anymore anyways, but I would have had a guitar that's just priceless in my possession.
Yeah, he played lefty too, so
Yeah.
I know. Sure
Yeah, I'm an advocate for never to sell your stuff unless you're about to be homeless. That's the only way I can say, like, okay, you might need some couple G's. Don't ever sell your stuff. I sold my stuff when I moved from Connecticut to California, and I still have some of it, but not all of it. And I do kind of regret knowing that I don't have some of that gear anymore, especially certain guitars.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. I mean, I totally get it. I've always been a little bit too much of a like hold on to things sort of guy, but like I'd be homeless with two really nice acoustics. You know,
Yeah.
before I sell those, I'm totally just like, all right, I guess I'm busking then, or something. Like I'll just like panhandle or
Yeah. I'll use the guitar to make money. Why not?
yeah.
No more 8x10s, right?
No, I sold those before I left. I actually, this childhood buddy of mine, I sold one of them, pristine, beautiful one. I sold it to him for like $350 just because I've known him my whole life. And he
That's
walked.
probably a deal and a half.
Oh yeah, yeah. That was like $1,200 cab or something like that. And
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we got them on the old interweb right here. You're not the only one that can look stuff up, Dave.
But yeah, no, I'm running I have a Mesa Powerhouse cab now. It serves its purpose, but I'm not playing live right now. So, and I live in an apartment, so every time I turn it on, I'm shaking the building. People think it's an earthquake, which is fun.
Yeah, knock on wood.
That's not good out your way.
Well, if somebody wants to be loud, I'm not the one to get into a sound battle with, because I'll probably win.
Yeah.
Question for both of you guys on the gear topic. What are you guys rocking with now for a live rig, amp wise, drums?
Sure, I'll take the lead, Brett. This is Brett with the drums here. I'm running a PDP concept by DW, and its entirety, it's an 8-piece, but I gotta kind of consolidate that when we're playing out live, like especially some of these sets we've been playing. It can be anywhere from 25-minute set to an hour set. I mean, if I'm playing an hour set, I'm gonna bring everything. And Dave, I've had I usually run 3 China Boy cymbals, when I'm in the studio and trying to get that right sound. But when you're playing 25-minute sets, a little different perspective. You got to consolidate the kit just for the sake of time. And I'll bring it down to one floor, 2 racks. But I could easily run 3 racks, 2 floors, and all the full 9 yards. But primarily DW hardware, Peisty 2002 cymbals. Got an Alex Van Halen 24-inch ride. It's really like a jazzy kind of ride, but it works for the metal for some reason. Like blast beats just sound so good with the bell. Yeah. And it's really funny, Dave. You'll appreciate this. I got this one old Zildjian China Boy cymbal. It's a ZXT, so it's like nothing too special, but it's got the gnarliest crack in it. That particular China was on the Medish Remedy, records, the singles that we released. It was on the Desaria records. It was on the Frame Cell records. It was on every single band that I've been in and recorded with. It's been on every record. And that's Mario's favorite cymbal. He's like, you got to have that darn cymbal in the mix, and you got to bring it when we're playing live. And, and like people will come up and be like, damn, dude, you got a big old crack in that China. I'm like, yeah, so builds character, man. And, that's a staple in the sound, especially for metal, and the attack and the it's really nice subtle sound, and it just cuts through so nicely. So but yeah, DW 9000 double kick pedal. Would love to have 2 kick drums, just for the sake of space, and you gotta again consolidate, so the double kick pedal comes in handy. And PDP concept, again, it's like the highest tier before completely being by DW. And then I got a DW steel snare drum. I had to part ways with my Joey Jordison Pearl snare drum. I'm sure you remember that one, Dave. That piccolo.
Pop, 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 pop.
Yeah. I graduated to a little bigger, 14 inch, and you got so much different sounds in the plane. And you can do rim shots. You go up to the center of it; it's a little more controlled. And I like my drums to ring a lot, like really loud. I don't believe in putting rings on them. In the studio, it's a different perspective and a different atmosphere. You gotta really watch the natural reverb. But I love my drums loud and ringy, and you're doing blast beats and 300 beat per minute, fills. You gotta really have those tom toms ring. And I love Remo heads, running Remo heads primarily, Emperors. I've been a fan ever since, and haven't found anything else that works for me. So I'm like, once I find my sound, I stick with it. So loving it.
I kind of want to touch on something Brett said. He mentioned how he likes his kit to like ring out, and he likes it to be like really huge. I think with us being a 3-piece, especially in a genre that's like not necessarily a 3-piece like genre, I guess. Man, it really helps. It really helps. I think Brett's kit and just the way he has it set up, and his heads and how he tunes everything, and it wouldn't be the same without the way he sets his gear up. So I just want to say touche, Brett.
Thanks,
touche.
Man. Tell them about your tradition.
As far as my gear goes, my gear is built totally for a completely different genre. Brett and I were in like a jazz rock fusion band for, I don't know, close to 7 years, maybe 7-8 years, before A Well-Oiled Machine, our current band. And, I don't have the money to just like drop on, Mesa half stack and, active pickup 7 strings and, all these like preamps and so on. So I'm rocking a Tele copy of this brand Tradition. I bought a Tradition semi-hollow body. It's like a Gibson 335 copy. But I played Gibson 335s. I didn't really like it. They didn't speak to me. So I ended up, my like luthier guy where I go, who works on my gear. He had one. He was an authorized dealer, very small company out of Texas, and I played it, and it just played itself. So I picked it up. I love the guitar. I love the brand. So I picked up a Tele style. A buddy of mine worked at Guitar Center, saw the brand, and said, "Hey, you might want to look at this. It's that brand you like." Picked it up instantly. I have a Strat style from the same brand. Love it to death. But for AWAM, I use the Tele style. And really crazy sound. It almost has more of a twang. Like I don't know if your listeners are into like djent or any of that groove stuff too much, but it really has like a bow to it. I don't know if that makes any sense, but it has a little bit of a twang, a little bit of that single coil on the bridge.
It's a mouthy guitar.
It's a mouthy guitar. Yeah, it's less of filling that sound, and I think it really has a little bit more character in this genre, the way I play it. Plus, I'm running through a Vox AC15, which the Beatles used, so it's definitely we've gone to shows and people are like, "Wait, I thought you were a metal band, but you have a Vox," and I'm like, "Yeah, it's what I got, and then next thing you know, after our set, they're like, wow, that like was huge. Your guitar sounds great. Your gear sounds great. And I really, gear is fantastic. And I like I said before, I think, better equipment makes you a better player, but really it's all what you make of it. If you're, if Brett's playing the worst kit ever, he's a good enough drummer where he can make it sound decent. And I feel like I could do the same with my gear. But at this point, like, I wouldn't change it. Like, I really have just come to love it. Plus, if I go do a jam with some funk guys, I'm in there. I'm good. And I think that's the goal. I like the versatility more than anything.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Hey, what you like is what you like. I've got friends that have, they got Legators and Solars and Strandbergs and, really expensive
Well, I would buy a
niche
Strandberg.
brand
If I if I
Kiesel.
if I won a couple grand on a scratch ticket, first thing I'm doing is buying a Strandberg. But carry on, go on.
It all very nice niche companies. But like I know what you're saying. Like I have an Agile, and a lot of people might not go for Agile because rondo music is, it's not Ibanez. But
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
my one of my guitars that I have is it's gorgeous. It's a baritone 27.5 inch scale, 7 string, reverse headstock, black flame maple,
Ooh,
EMG 707s, and it was on sale for $499 like 10 years ago. Snagged that thing off the internet, and it's a mean sounding guitar. Uh
good purchase.
and yeah, and it's heavy, but it's a mean sounding guitar, and it was a great deal. Could I have gone out and spent 4 times as much on a guitar that pretty much had the same specs? I mean, I personally don't like the EMGs. I'm not a guitar player, so that dialing in active pickups for me is a lot different than me using the active and passive stuff that I would do on bass.
Hmm.
It's yeah, it's what you like. It's your niche, that's your thing. Some people could be you can make a Squire sound good if you wanted to. I mean, they're
Yeah,
it's
for sure.
I think it's a little bit of both. It's you can put a really really cheap guitar, sub $200 in somebody's hands, and they can shred it. Or you could put a $2,000 guitar in somebody's hands, and they might not have the skill at the moment to shred it, so it won't sound that good. It'll sound good, but you know, not
Yeah,
technically,
yeah.
like you said.
I mean, I don't have active pickups. I never have. I've played Brett's brother Stan. He had a 7 string with active pickups, and I played that for a minute, and I loved the idea of it. I thought it sounded really great. I thought it was very fitting for the genre. But again, I think just the way that my setup is not built for metal makes it more unique for the metal genre. You know what I mean? I kind of get to play with it a little bit more, and just kind of work the angle of it being. I mean, it's a telly style, so it's not a one of those baritone tellies with Fishmans or anything like that. It's basically just a telly, and it allows us to be a little bit more different, or at least me with my like the songwriting and stuff. I get to play around with it. So yeah, you could have all that great stuff, and it could be so geared towards what you're trying to do, but now you're falling into a mold a little bit. And I don't think anything about a well-oiled machine really kind of falls into a mold. We keep it a little different, a little fresh, and I think that has something to do with it. I think our backgrounds being more than just metal has a lot to do with that as well. But it's really just how you work it. And if I'm writing a song on a telly, well, I'm going to get different sounds, and it's just going to sound a little different. And I still want it to be heavy, of course. So now I can bounce around with it. Go from a beautiful jazz chord to a brutal breakdown, or some like tremolo blast beat section or whatever.
It is saying something about the Telecaster style. I mean, you can bring up Slipknot in any conversation when it comes to metal.
Jim
But
Root.
with yeah, Jim Root, his
I was
Telly. I
going to
mean,
say, I think Jim Root from Slipknot has a what is it, a baritone or is it a
No,
seven
Fender,
string?
Fender Tele 6 string.
It's just a standard. Get out
yeah,
of here.
Yes,
just with
sir.
his guts in there. That's about it.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, big fan.
Are they? Do you guys know if they're drop A or drop
both,
C?
both drop A,
uh,
drop B.
Drop A, drop
yeah,
B. Okay,
Right?
yeah. I think they float.
Yeah, Iowa had two different tunings: drop B, drop A.
Yeah, I'm
gotcha.
pretty sure the self-titled record was an A, and probably B too. I'm
It
sure that
was
they
B. Yeah.
float most bands like that in those genres. That's another thing too, is tuning preference. There's a lot of bands that can rock 4 different tunings throughout a set or just even a record, which is it's really cool. The untrained ear might not hear that, but
Mhm.
the musician that's listening to it or the musician that wrote it is definitely going to hear the difference. And I'm sure it's been, something that he's worked on for a while. And also probably for him as an example, it probably keeps it normal for him because he probably uses a similar guitar, if not his signature guitar, in Stone Sour as well as Slipknot. So it keeps it so he's not playing Alien Lumber all the time.
Yeah,
Uh,
just bouncing around.
yeah, flipping back and forth. Speaking of live, between both of you guys, what's the highlight? Like, what was the coolest thing? You're on stage, or you're about to get on stage, or you're at a show, and you're like, "Holy shit, I'm doing this! This is so cool."
I can talk about that. We played with this band called Makes My Blood Dance. They're out of Manhattan, and they have a touring drummer that comes on the road with them. Name's Crow. Shout out to Crow. He's listening. I remember we were rocking out mid set, and we got the blood flowing, and everybody's starting to feel it. And when you're seeing the audience get down and start headbanging and doing the circle pit, and we had a pretty good decent reaction to it. And like I said, whether I'm playing with a well-oiled machine or some of the different bands I fill in for, a little more classic, softer rock, when you see people dance, that's the best feeling, man. Like when you know your music is reaching their heart and their hearts and getting them engaged and they're feeling the music, or even if it's just moving their head around, head banging a little bit. That to me is the coolest thing, man. Because
Some sort of reaction.
The reaction is that's really well said. And but Crow, he got the crowd going, and he started doing the head bang with the long hair, man, and it was just like hell yeah. And he got down, and the devil horns, and it was dope. It was rad.
I think for me, as a kid, going to like local shows and stuff like that, the Webster Underground was like the big venue. Like there were countless American Legions, countless VFWs that just had insane shows. But the Webster Underground was like, oh, this band's playing the Underground. Like that's kind of a big deal. So that was kind of a bucket list thing for me. And Brett and I's last band, we had a show there. And we had a ton of people. We had like 30 people, like for us. And I remember like walking on stage and just being like, wow, like this is like it. Like I'm good with this. I don't think like I could be like any happier with a gig. And to this day, I don't think I have been. Like it sounds super lame, but like I was so like about it and into it that at the end of the set, so many people were dancing and just like really loving it and having a great time. I was in the vibe and I threw a pick. And as soon as it left my hand, I was like, that's the douchiest thing I think I've ever done. And people like pig piled to like get it. And I was like, wow, that's like really like fucking crazy. Like we weren't really anything. I mean, we were decent. I thought we were a pretty good band, but for like, I don't think we were good enough to throw a pick into the crowd, and it was just like a douchey thing to do. But the fact that people like went for it and like, I mean, it's the whole underground was packed, and I think that's probably the highlight of like my show, my like playing live. I think that really did it. I on my deathbed, I could say, "Oh, I played the Webster Underground,"
It's a great space. It's a really cool feeling to play the underground when you do have bodies flooding into like where bands put their gear,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
you
for
have
sure.
you can all you see is heads from the stage to the soundboard, and the bar is filled up. And I definitely had that experience at the underground. I'm sure the sound is better now. Uh, now that Brett's brother works there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
shout out
he's
Stan.
he's taking care of it. We know we can
Yeah,
count on Stan.
Yeah,
I forgot the name of some of the sound guys that worked there. There was one guy, I'm not even going to try to describe him because it was like 10 years ago
yeah.
plus. And he was good. It's just there's sometimes it doesn't work out. I've played the main stage a handful of times as well, and those types of stages are hit or miss, especially when you have full clubs like that. Unless you're selling out the room or you're with the band that's selling out the room or you're direct support for a band that's sold out the room. It's really weird when you have the amount of people in the underground and then you throw them into the main stage and all you see is floor.
Totally different. Totally different.
It changes the perspective up a little bit. And it's not as, I mean, it's fun. But it's not as cool when you have a half of a room filled. You want to see a sea of people. That happened to us when I was in Forsaken. We played a show called Kaboom Fest in Massachusetts at the Hippodrome, and it was like, who was on it? It was like Shadows Fall, Suffocate.
Oh hell yeah!
Man, there was like 20 bands on there. It was not packed. It was really weird, and we were right in the main slots. We were right. I think we were right 2 bands before Suffocate, and I think Thy Will Be Done, King
Nice.
Conquer, Murder, Death, Kill,
Nice.
Cruel Hand,
Nice.
Lionheart. Yeah, it was a big show.
Stacked.
And it wasn't filled up, which was really strange. And that was back in 2010, I believe. But those rooms, when they're not full,
That's why those American Legions and VFWs and all those like club like private club shows, those were so cool because
wild.
if you had 10 people, it was filled.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You didn't necessarily have to like sell out like a 250 cap venue to like really like do the thing. You could have 10 people just throwing down in a pit and feel like a boss. If you're playing the Webster main stage and you're looking at floor, well, it's a little it kind of like, I don't know, it's disheartening a little bit. It's like, well, I've seen other bands that are packing it, but you have 100 people. You know what I mean? It's hard to see that and tell yourself, no, this is still kind of packed, but it's just the venue cap.
Yeah, those types of rooms like the underground, like I said, are really awesome, especially when they're packed. I've played shows, and it's even more fun when you do it in your 3 or 4 states away from home, and the place is filled, and you got crowd interaction with some people that may have never heard of you other than just on MySpace at the time or SoundCloud or whatever you're using, purevolume.com or something like that.
MySpace.
But there's also been times where you go to these really, really well-known venues. Like we played a show at Croc Rock in Allentown, Pennsylvania. I don't believe it's there anymore, but it's a well-known stop for a lot of bands in Pennsylvania. And there were more people on the crew and the bands than there were in the whole crowd the entire night. And it was just, I think we even took the merch down like before we played because nobody was there. We were like, this is so bad. Good thing we're getting paid something tonight because this sucks.
That's gonna happen. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
we haven't played out of state yet as far as a well-oiled machine. I'm really looking forward to it because I think metal is one of those genres where like if people are feeling it, they're just gonna throw down. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
and that's ultimately the goal. Like Brett said, you see somebody moving, they could be the only person in the pit, but if they're fucking throwing down and really enjoying themselves, that makes it all kind of worth it.
Oh, that's what it's all about, is people having a good time. With you guys too, I really think you guys have an advantage to actual, I guess pigeonholed metal bands, because when you have like a metalcore band that's going to play somewhere, they're a metalcore band. You're not playing pizza places and maybe, bars and stuff like that. So I think you guys have a lot of versatility in your sound to where you can mesh with you can mesh with the rock and roll guys, you can mesh with the metal guys, and still be in a very, very comfortable spot. So you guys would do great out of state because you can utilize bars. A band like when I was in Forsaken, us playing a bar would have been probably a frightening experience for some people, depending on where you're
Sure,
at.
Forsaken was super brutal, and
Yeah, we're heavy.
I agree with you there. I a lot of our shows, like we've played with a lot of bands that aren't necessarily in our genre or wheelhouse or what
Yeah.
have you, but the the respect that we get is, it was surprising to me. You know what I mean? Like as somebody that comes from like 2000s deathcore like that, I think that's kind of like my like wheelhouse. Seeing the like love that we've been getting from people that don't give two shits about metal is really kind of incredible. And the love is really out there. And I don't think that's necessarily something our band is doing, or like intentionally at least. But the love is there, like you said, yeah, it's metalcore. There's a little bit of singing, a little bit of screaming, a little bit of breakdowns, a little bit of melodic, but the fact that anybody could kind of get into it, I think you're right. The bar scene, um, it's tough for a band that's really specific. You know what I mean? Forsaken. If you had Through the Eyes of the Dead playing a dive bar, well, the locals aren't going to like that. Like you said, people are going to kind of cower in fear a little bit.
Yeah, depending on the bar. There's a bar out here in San Diego called Space Bar, and they have death metal nights. And so even if there's not a band playing, they'll have like death metal and like old school metal over the speaker system. So
See,
you're just
we
listening
need
to
that
it.
in Connecticut. I would go
Yeah,
there. I would
yeah,
go
it
to
it
that
it would be
bar.
a really hot spot in anywhere in Connecticut, and I'm surprised that people have not utilized that, especially with all of the musicians that I know in Connecticut and Mass and that area that are a little bit older now that are trying to become entrepreneurs. If you guys are hearing this, that's a good idea. I know a few people that have talked to me about flirting with the ideas of starting a club or a venue, uh, and that would be a good way to start. You guys have a really good sound for that. You guys would do really well up and down. You guys would do really well out here. I would tell you, and with a lot of the clubs and especially the bar scene. The bar scene is honestly a lot easier to get shows in now than clubs and stuff like that. It's like it's such a hassle now. If you're not part of a tour package, good luck getting into you know a larger venue like the Palladium or
Yeah,
stuff
it's
like that.
business. It's business.
Yeah, it's always has been, but now it's ever since this pandemic thing. It's definitely changed the game since a lot of these venues unfortunately have been bought out by larger companies, so things
Mhm.
have turned into well more of a business. I know there's definitely exceptions, like Webster Theater is an exception to that. They're not, they're still, I
Right.
think they're still doing their own thing, which is great, and they have good people running that venue. So
Yeah, for sure.
with a well-oiled machine, I know you guys obviously knew each other beforehand. When you were talking about starting the band, did you just get going? Was there like a talk about a goal? And obviously your inspiration and your influences all come from different areas and like areas. Like you and Brett have, definitely probably have similar likes in music. And did you just start jamming? Did it just flow naturally? Like, did you just start pumping out songs?
Yeah, it's funny. That's a good question, Dave. I got a Spark Notes response to that. It's funny because Mario and I being, and my brother Stan being the most, biggest metal heads in the out of the five of us from the previous band, which was called New Amsterdam Nobles. Um, Sometimes Mario would come down a little bit earlier to practice for New Amsterdam Nobles, and during rehearsal, you just start busting out this one metal riff, and he would always just every practice bring this riff, and like the two other guys that were not really into metal at all would always look kind of like give like that Sour Patch Kids look, face to us. And when that band started getting ready to break up, Mario was like, dude, I got a whole bunch of metal riffs and I'm going to bring them down. And I think that first riff ended up becoming,
Fire.
yeah, the song called Fire, which is on our first EP, Isolate. And that was like the starting point because like we already had kind of like the drive and the motivation to go that direction with the metal and and some throwing some double bass and some some nice alternate picking and some some chunky tremolo. It worked out it was like it was just destined to be. I think it was just destined to happen, and it just came naturally. There was no like, hey, there was no question about
we we
it.
didn't we didn't necessarily decide on doing that, but it the band was breaking up, and like Brett said, I had kind of a handful of riffs, and I don't know how many people out there have listened to our EP. If you go on our Spotify, you can hear our EP. It's very kind of screamo esque, and I think the reason for that was before we were in Nobles. That's kind of what I was writing and listening to at the time. A lot of screamo, um, kind of stuff like that, and we just said, fuck it, let's do like a little bit of a nostalgia trip. You know what I mean? We're all in our 30s just about, and it's like it's not really, we're not trying to be huge, we're not trying to do this, we're not trying to do that, but we're trying to have fun, and we're trying to just like really enjoy ourselves, and I think that's where we landed. And through the years being in a well-oiled machine, the screamo left pretty quick, and it was like, no, let's keep it real with blast beats, breakdowns, two steps, pig squeals. Like let's get fucking violent. Let's get like crazy with it, because again, we all have day jobs and stuff like that. If we're playing a show, we want to have fun. And I think there's nothing more fun than just like watching the energy that comes from a metal show. And I think right now our issue is trying to hop on bills that are, could we play with a hardcore band? Yes. Could we play with an indie band? Yes. But I think the goal right now is to get into more of that scene that would kind of appreciate it a little bit more, less oh wow, this is better than I thought, and more of wow, you guys are heavy, or whatever. So we did that EP. We had those riffs that were on there, and the progression has just been, I mean, it's gotten incredibly heavy, and I'm so stoked for everybody to start hearing it. We have plans to get in the studio. We have stuff that we're working on, and I think it's really going to blow people's minds. Watching the beginning of AWAM and where we're at now. I think it's crazy, and I think what happened was it became less of, well, we can't stop jamming because we need to keep our chops up, so let's just play whatever the fuck we want. And now it's like, no, this shit's actually not bad, and people are digging it, and we just want people to throw down, and we just want to play a half-hour gig with four other bands that are playing half-hour sets, just putting their heart and soul into 6 songs and seeing what the crowd wants.
Well said. That's I've noticed that a lot. It's a trend. When we were younger, being in a band, especially in my experience, it was definitely fun. But there were a few bands that I was in, two in particular, that it was business. You enjoyed doing it, practicing, writing. I think the studio for me was probably the worst experience out of being in a band. I like the end result, but the process is just, I just, but playing live was the best part. Uh, but now I'm seeing a lot of trend with a lot of the dudes. Everybody's in their 30s now, uh, getting older. Some of the guys that I've talked to, they're in their 40s. It's just about having a good time and utilizing the skills that you used when you were younger, when you might have been way more serious about it. Even though this is not serious, you're still serious, because it's an expensive hobby, uh, especially if you're doing it as a hobby and not as trying to at least make a portion of your living on it. So yeah, it's all about having fun, man. I got a buddy that we talked to a couple weeks ago, and he kind of played. He was in Forsaken after me. He was one of the bass players after I had left with his new band. They're kind of like a funk pop punk band, really trippy. and he's like, we just have fun. So it's great to hear that you guys just have fun. I'm excited to see what happens, to see more shows coming. Definitely to see if you guys can expand out of Connecticut, play some shows, do a couple days, because it would be really awesome to see you out here. One place I know you guys would thrive would be like places like Nashville. You guys would probably kill venues there.
I bet you we would. I've been a
Yeah.
handful of times, and the metal scene out there, although it's a little bit more niche, those fans are dedicated.
Yeah, you got people who appreciate music in that area.
Absolutely.
Before you guys go, let everybody know where they can listen to the band. You guys have a website, your social medias, when the next shows are.
Sure. So we primarily are on the Insta, on Instagram. The handle is a well-oiled machine _CT. We're on Spotify, YouTube. Right now, we're getting ready to start getting into recording mode. We have so many new songs, and like Mario mentioned earlier in the podcast here, like we want to show people the evolution of this band. It's taken a more darker, heavier turn, and I think we're just so pumped to get this out. And then when you're in recording mode, the focus is to get the tracks ironed out, and sometimes you got to take some time to really get into the studio mode, and that takes a lot of concentration and a lot of energy, getting ready to play to a click and get everything ironed out. So right now I think our next direction is to definitely get those songs recorded and show the world like what this band sounds like now compared to our first EP, Isolate. And again, just stay tuned. We're getting a lot of messages, a lot of interaction and engagement on the social media, both Facebook and Instagram, from fellow local bands that are like, hey man, it's all about the hashtags and CT metal, CT music, and shout out to everybody here in Connecticut, and beyond, that are doing it, and just trying to get that outreach out there, and just network. Like, we're just here to have a good time, man. And shout out to John Miller, and Colin. Like, we love you guys, and we look forward to playing with you guys sometime soon. And Sean from Green Invaders, we dig it, man. The gent, the metalcore, it's just brutal, man. We just love the brutal metal, and we're bringing it back. History repeats itself. The early 2000s, mark my words, like it's coming back, man. And I think people are just long overdue for the heaviness, and we look forward to just getting some pits going, man, and just keeping the music alive.
I think if there's something that listeners right now, if they want to listen to something, if they're listening to this and saying, well, oh, that's interesting, what do they sound like, you could check out our EP, Isolate. It's a very 2000s Silverstein Seosin type of vibe, which I think it's great. I think those songs are great. Our single after that, Out Like a Lion, I think really showcases the fact that you could be heavy and have melody, you could have technicality, you could have, pig squeals and breakdowns and melodic choruses. And, shout out to my sister who did harmonies on that track. But yeah, like Brett said, I mean, the next wave of a well-oiled machine is, I think, something that a lot of people that really appreciate that old school local, go to a VFW and just like, see these, if you want to throw down in a pit, that's where you went. And I think our newer stuff, I mean, we have, maybe 10, 11 songs that are just ready to go. And like Brett said, our focus right now is to record those, get those out there, and really just kind of share it. And I think a lot of people our age who were into it as teenagers, like, really kind of appreciate that. And the love that we've gotten from those sorts of heads is crazy, So really all we could say is just like, keep an eye on the Instagram, keep an eye on the Facebook. We don't have any shows lined up right now because our focus is really kind of getting those songs out. But that's not to say that something might not pop up, in a week or two, you know what I mean? Like, we're really playing everything we can. And if people are local in Connecticut and they want to come out and see people rock out like it's 2006. Come see a well-oiled machine, and we try to perform like a well-oiled machine. So you can expect us to be tight. You can expect us to be professional, and you're not gonna be hearing us dick around. We're here to fucking rock out.
You guys aren't smashing beer cans together over your heads and stuff like that on
I mean,
stage.
we could, but
You
like
could, yeah.
we do it as a well-oiled machine would.
Oh man, it's been awesome. Thank you guys for your time coming on and chatting. Definitely looking forward to some new tunes and some new videos. Hopefully I can make it out to Connecticut at some point, and hopefully it lines up with a live show, or maybe come check you guys out at practice. That would be pretty sweet too.
Yeah, we
I don't
love
know
that.
if you guys have closed sessions or not, but thank you guys. I really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, any time. Honestly, this was a blast, and I listened to the other episodes, and I love what you guys are doing as far as like what you're talking about is real shit. I really appreciate listening to stuff that matters to me. You know what I mean? I could sit there and like be like, oh, I know that venue. Oh, I know that band. Oh, I
Yeah.
know it. Like it just means a lot that people give a shit. When I was, 12, 13 years old, taking the bus to Webster, Underground to go see, Forsaken or, Years Since the Storm or any of these, bands, Beneath the Gallows, what have you.
Through the Eyes of the Dead.
It's just like, it's cool to see people still appreciating that scene. So for you, kudos.
Thank you. Yeah, we just Dan and I have known each other for over a decade, and we met through shows, and we clicked every time we played a show together, and we hadn't talked in years and years, and the past couple of years we've started talking again, and the last, I would say, 7-8 months we were talking about doing this. And those episodes that you heard, the first 3 that we released, those were all recorded way back at the end of 2022. So we're evolving. Things will be different, but yeah, no, we want to talk about things that matter to us, and the stuff that matters to us is our experiences, and hopefully it resonates with other people, especially the younger kids, and even the kids that were at our shows. Like you said you remember going to see us at one point at the Webster Underground. So, and it opens the door for, it's not just going to be Connecticut based bands or New England based bands, but right now we know so many people and have so many connections and networks within that entire industry and community that we're just continuously talking to people from Connecticut right now. And for me personally, and I know Dan as well, would say that we want to open up that scene again. And podcasting is such a good reach to the non-listener to hear, oh, well, this is, holy crap, this whole world that happened over the last decade and a half in this area. And there's so many stories, and we could go on and on and on. And I could literally have 3, 4, 5-hour episodes with chats with some of the guys that we're talking to. And I wish we could do that. And maybe eventually we'll have some longer running plays, but I appreciate you digging what we're doing. We're going to evolve. Everything will change. And but yeah, we just want to talk real shit. That's all it is. Talk about life, but life while doing the stuff that we've all done.
It's all what we love, man. And honestly, like I love what you guys are doing. I think it's great, and I don't want you to stop. So.
We won't. We're trucking along.
Good. Keep trucking, my friend.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you so much. Follow us on Instagram at Tales from the Soundcheck Podcast, and listen on Spotify, where you can follow and rate the show. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for full episodes and exclusive clips. If you have any comments or want to chat with us on the show or have your band featured, please DM us or email us at talesfromthesoundcheckpodcast@gmail.com. As always, before we let you go, check out some new music from a well-oiled machine. This is Out Like a Lion.